Hello, my name is Rain and welcome to my channel where I discuss Fantasy Formula 1. In today's video, we're going to discuss what happened to my team at the Mexican Grand Prix and what my plans are and what your plans should be for the sprint weekend at the Brazilian Grand Prix. But before we get into that, there are some announcements to be made. First of all, on Friday for the sprint qualifying, I will be live over on Twitch for a watch-along. So you can follow me on Twitch. Link to that is in the description below. Also, since this is a sprint weekend, the deadline is before the sprint race, not the qualifying, not the sprint qualifying, before the sprint race. So the deadline stream will be live 2 hours before deadline, 2 hours before the sprint on Saturday. Make sure you join me for that, both on YouTube and over on Twitch. With that said, let's get into how my team did in Mexico and then move on to my plans for Brazil. Eagle-eyed viewers may notice that something is strange in the image that I am presenting to you. And those who follow me on social media might remember what happened to me. Last weekend, we didn't have a proper, or last race weekend, I should say, we didn't have a proper deadline stream for Mexico because I was going away in the evening. So we had a deadline stream a couple hours earlier, and then I made my transfers on my phone, away from, social media, all of that stuff. I made my transfers, clicked through, and after the qualifying, I saw that my transfers had not gone through. I don't know exactly what happened, because my transfers did go through on my other team, which I made after. Maybe it was something with me logging out. Maybe I didn't click through the entire way. I don't recall, but something did happen. It could be that bug that we've seen multiple times where like the team auto refreshes back to where it was previously. Maybe that happened, and then I clicked, like, I changed something and then clicked through. I don't know what happened, but I ended up just not making a transfer. Luckily, because of George Russell picking up the fastest lap, it wasn't a disaster. The transfer I was going to make was George Russell out to Leclerc, and in total, I lost 6 points on that transfer not going through. So it's not the end of the world. 6 points and 0.2 million. In budget. Oliver Behrman came away with a monster haul, which I did not have. I was considering buying him pretty much the entire week, but it wouldn't have been the transfer I ended up making, so I can't be too upset about missing it. I am still upset about missing it though, and frankly, I probably would have sold Bortoleto to get Oliver Behrman in, and Bortoleto was my highest scoring driver anyway. I don't think I would have sold Alonso. So it's not like I would have avoided Alonso's DNF if I had Bortoleto, if I had Behrman instead. So it's another middling week ultimately, right? As you can see, my overall rank has still not changed. If you go back in time and watch my team selections videos, like just the first minute of each one, going back, I think the last time I had anything other than a 3 at the start of my rank was like Silverstone. I think Silverstone was when I had a really good weekend and I climbed up to top 3, top 3.5k or whatever. And I've just stayed there. I've not had a disaster weekend, but I've also not had a great weekend all second half of the season. I've just stayed 3k overall. Meanwhile, other content creators and a lot of you guys I know have been down to like 12k and then are now up at 1k, or it's not, this is not common, okay? You will have bad weekends, you should have good weekends. I'm just having slightly above or slightly below average weekends every single weekend. I guess I'm just the king of consistency now, but I can't complain. If I stay top 3k something in this region until the end of the season, it's a massively successful season. You can't say anything else about it. It's just, I want one really, really good weekend where I just get everything 100% correct. And if I get that, I don't think I can get top 1k. I don't think I can reach the 3 digits, but maybe I can like half my rank. If I could half my rank from where I am right now, I mean, that would be absolutely incredible, and I could never complain about F1 Fantasy ever again. But right now, my goal for the season, my actual goal for the season, will be to try and reduce that 3 at the start of the rank to a 2. That is my goal now until the end of the season. 2k something, 2.5k, 2.8k, I don't care. Just get that 3 out of my face. I've been watching it. I've just been editing it up and down by a couple hundred points, or by a couple of hundred in rank every single week for the second half of the season. With that said, let's begin looking at some assets, what assets we want for Brazil, and how we play the Brazilian Grand Prix, the sprint weekend that is the Brazilian Grand Prix. Before we actually look at what my team's likely to look like for Brazil, we have to talk about the weather. The weather is always a factor at the Brazil GP, and once again it's looking shaky, to say the least. Right now there's forecasted rain across the weekend in different spots. It's looking majorly rainy on Saturday, but that could obviously change. We're still a few days out from the event, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it rain on Friday and Sunday as well. For me, this indicates what we've been expecting throughout the entire year, that this is going to be a really good weekend to use the no negative chip or the autopilot chip if you have any of those two available, especially autopilot if you're running two premium drivers such as Max plus Piastri, Max plus Lando, Max plus Russell, Max plus Leclerc, any combination of Max plus anything. If you have that, then I think the 2X is a fantastic option. But we also need to take into account are which drivers are usually good in the rain and which drivers are less so. What this rain also means for my team specifically is that I will not be using my 3X here in Brazil. There's 2 sprint weekends left of the season, Brazil and Qatar. I think that the best place to use the 3X now will be in Qatar. It's just too big of a risk in a rainy weekend, in my opinion, to put the 3X on, to activate the 3X. This is because, of course, as we saw happened in Kota, when one of your 3X drivers, or both even for those who had Lando plus Oscar, when one or both of your 3X, 2X drivers DNF, you lose a lot of points. And even though those who had the 3X on Max had a great weekend in Kota, the 2X for most of those people was on Piastri, who did not end up having a good weekend, meaning that they did lose out a bit of points. And I'm hoping, as someone who didn't use the 3X in Kota, to catch up to them, and I don't want the same thing happening to me. The worst outcome would be to place the 3X on like Max plus Oscar or something similar, and then one of them DNF because of the rain. Could they DNF in Qatar as well? Of course they could, but I'm more inclined to put my bet on Qatar than I am on Brazil for now. And going over to my actual team, one driver that I'm not that confident about, but it's a major toss-up, is homeboy Gabriel Bortoleto in this weekend. He's risen again to 7.3 million, seems a prime candidate to sell in order to afford someone like a Bearman or similar. However, it's his home race. If he performs well, he could definitely end up with like a 30-pointer. Driver of the day is definitely a possibility for him. It's his first home Grand Prix. That's definitely a factor. But if it rains, he has not been that good in the rain so far this season. If you recall the rainy races that we've had, he DNF'd in Australia, he DNF'd in Miami, and he DNF'd in Silverstone. So his rainy weather record so far this season has been pretty atrocious, meaning that the possibility, like the floor and ceiling of Gabriel Bortoleto this week seems incredibly low and incredibly high. Essentially, he could get anywhere from negative 30, negative 40 points all the way up to like plus 35. It feels impossible to call. It feels dumb to sell him leading into his home race, but if you know his rainy weather record sort of speaks for itself, and I'm not sure what to do with him. I think I will have to see how he performs in the sprint qualifying, and just see how comfortable he feels in the car before I actually make a decision on him. But he's definitely on the chopping block. We'll just have to wait and see if he's the one I actually get rid of. And with having 3 free transfers available, I have a lot of things at my disposal. And considering I'm not using the 3X, literally like any move is possible. If I was going for the 3X, I would probably like to have Max plus Lando in there. They seem like the 2 drivers in form at the moment. And if I were to pop my 3x, I would probably want to have them as my 2 options. But seeing as I'm not using the 3x, I don't need to upheave my entire team to fit Lando Norris in there. The only way, by the way, right now that I could get Lando Norris in there is because I need to free up 5 million or 4.8 million somehow. Even fully downgrading my drivers here, I couldn't afford it. The cheapest drivers available would be Fernando Alonso, Pierre Gasly, and Franco Colapinto. I could not afford this team right now. So that leads me to think that maybe my plan should be to be able to afford Max Verstappen plus Lando Norris with McLaren still in there, because I'm not that far away. I'm 0.6 million away. So should I make transfers and slightly more budget focused that I would perhaps find ideal at this stage of the season. So for that reason, we're back on the budget builder site. It's the first time I've been here in like a month, it feels like. It was a long time ago. And looking at the drivers here, for the premium drivers, the best one this week is actually, believe it or not, Charles Leclerc. And I could downgrade Russell to Leclerc. That was the move I was supposed to make last week, but didn't end up getting through. I lost some budget on that already, but Leclerc is still cheaper, and he's way more likely to rise in price than Russell is this weekend. But if I'm making transfers with a slightly more budget-minded approach, Leclerc seems like a good option, because Leclerc and Russell right now seem very equal in terms of the value that they provide. Obviously, Leclerc outscored Russell last week and probably would have outscored him by way more, if Russell did not pick up that fastest lap. Over a longer period of time, it seems like Leclerc and Russell are always those two competing for the like P3 to like P5 position. And I think Russell would have had a much better weekend if he had better strategy than what Mercedes provided him with. For the cheaper drivers, I mean, there's only really one guy to consider, and that, I mean, sure, Bortoleto and Tsunoda don't look bad either, but it's Oliver Behrman, and that provides it's very, very difficult, and that is very, very difficult for me personally, just because of how my team looks like. And all the way down at the bottom with 2 back-to-back weekends of DNFs, the 2 weekends that I've owned him, Fernando Alonso is also a major, major issue. Because I've lost so much budget on Fernando Alonso, I can now not afford a switch from Alonso to Behrman. I'm missing 0.6 million. So even if I'd had that George Russell thing, and especially if I want to, even with the George Russell downgrade to Charles Leclerc, I cannot afford this. So that means if I want to afford Oliver Behrman, it would have to be for Bortoleto or for Sainz. And Bortoleto is the guy in second, right? Sainz is all the way down here, needs a 20-pointer. Do I want to sell Sainz? Not really. He's not performing that bad. A reminder that this minus 3-pointer included a DNF for him at Kota. So he was actually not that bad in Kota despite the negative points. And if he'd not had that, he would have been all the way up here. But perhaps it's a sell Sainz for 1 week type of deal and then try and get him back afterwards in Vegas. That could be a possibility for me. Because again, if I want to sell Bortoleto, then it's an easy switch to Behrman. But if I want to keep Bortoleto for the budget and the potential points of it being his home race, I need to find another way to get Behrman in there. The other option for Alonso is just to get Gasly or Colapinto in there. If they drop in price, they will only drop the maximum 0.2. They will only drop at most 0.2 million. And they're relatively decent in terms of, odds for increase. So perhaps it's just something like this, Colapinto or Gasly in here, and then Russell over to Leclerc. I will say, however, Verstappen, Leclerc, McLaren, Mercedes is incredibly cursed. I hate how this looks. I actually despise it. This looks terrible. And the reason for it, if it doesn't seem intuitive to you, is that if I have McLaren, I want Norris and Piastri to do well. If I have Mercedes, I want Antonelli and Russell to do well. If I have Leclerc, I mean, that's Ferrari doing well. If I'm picking from all the 4 top teams and just spreading my bets, it increases the potential risk for. I mean, I suppose like if Russell DNFs, at least I don't have Russell, right? And people who have Russell and Mercedes hurt more by it. But I still pick up the residual damage from it, and it keeps me in that sort of average category where I'm just not gonna push on, because like If Leclerc does well, then Ferrari does well, and I don't have Ferrari, so people with Ferrari also do well. If Verstappen does, if Max Verstappen does well, then Red Bull Racing does well, and I don't have Red Bull Racing. So I don't see how I climb with this. I think if I want to actually push on and climb into the top 2 or top 1K, I kind of have to, you know, place all my eggs in one basket, and I'm not doing it with this lineup, which is why I do not like it. Again, of course, the signs could be Oliver Behrman, but then I'm using 3 transfers back down to 2 transfers, and I'm kind of locking myself in. And if I want to get Norris in 2 races time, I'm forced to only making 1 transfer in Vegas. It's a lot, okay? It's a lot. Perhaps the answer is to not make that Leclerc move, even though Leclerc is better for budget gains than Russell. All in all, like, these top drivers, these 8-tier drivers, don't increase that much in price anyway. So if I want to push on and gain another 0.6 million, because that's really what I'm trying to increase by. And granted, this is not like 0.6 or just one, like overall 0.6 increase towards the Gasly, Colapinto, and Norris team, which looks something like this. You know, imagine Colapinto in here. This is the team that I'm sort of working towards. Granted, working towards Gasly and Colapinto doesn't seem great, but for the 3x in Qatar, I think this is what I want to run. I think it's Verstappen Norris that I want to have. And if I want to be able to afford that while still keeping McLaren in there, that is what I need to gain. And in actuality, what I can do, and what I think, you know, why I think this will be a good move for me, I like Fernando Alonso points-wise. I think Alonso can do a lot for me points-wise going forward. I know he's been super unlucky. But if I just sell Alonso to Gasly or Colapinto, which are 2 drivers that I'm going to have in this team anyway, Alonso's all but guaranteed to drop 0.6 million, meaning I can just get Fernando Alonso back for 4.9 million, which is, lo and behold, the magical 0.6 million that I need to find to afford this anyway, right? So for that reason, the main transfer that I will make almost no matter what this week, and it goes against what I've said, you know, how you should play the game at the end of the season, but it will be Alonso to Gasly or Colapinto to downgrade them, okay? If it's Gasly or if it's Colapinto, we'll have to depend entirely on the sprint qualifying result. It's probably going to be the one of them that qualifies the lowest. And if they drop in price, It's kind of fine because they're, you know, at least capped to the 0.2 loss. But at least I don't have Fernando Alonso's 0.6 drop again. And that means I can then afford the Max Verstappen Norris team, which I want for Qatar. This leaves me more flexible to actually just spend 1 more transfer of doing something like Sainz up to Behrman, get Behrman's increase in price, and then I can get Sainz back later. And also, if Sainz ends up dropping in price, maybe I can even do Sainz instead of Fernando Alonso. We'll have to wait and see. That is all if I'm going for that Max Verstappen Norris team in Qatar, by the way. It is entirely possible that McLaren looks super dominant in Qatar, and I want the team to look like this anyway, with Lando Norris plus Oscar Piastri. And in this case, I can just straight up afford this team. All I need to do is, well, I need to keep Fernando Alonso in there, but it would be Gabriel Bortoleto down to, I mean, it doesn't even have, I can almost afford Liam Lawson in here, but it would be one of the Alpine boys. This also looks fine for 3x, especially if Piastri picks some form back up. So I think for me this weekend, the one guaranteed move I will make is Fernando Alonso out. I think Fernando Alonso could get a 20-pointer, by the way. But I'm selling him strictly for budget reasons because I want to have the option of going for Norris plus Verstappen plus McLaren in my team for Qatar, and I currently cannot afford that. So to be able to afford that, Alonso is the one that has to go. That leaves me, if I want to save a transfer, to make 1 more move this week, get in a guaranteed price riser such as Oliver Behrman for Bortoleto or Sainz. It could be to sell Mercedes to Red Bull Racing if Yuki Tsunoda and Red Bull Racing look good and Mercedes doesn't, right? That could be a move I make. It could also be to do the Russell to Leclerc move, or even Russell to Piastri move if Piastri's starting on pole in the sprint weekend, right? I know Piastri is likely to drop in price, but I place a lot of, I do gain a lot of budget by going for the Gasly pick over Alonso, so I can afford to go more aggressive on the move here. And especially since a lot of people are selling Oscar now, that could be a massive differential. if he looks good. But all other moves that's not this Alonso down to an Alpine driver will have to depend on the sprint qualifying. But for right now, I am guaranteed. I have decided for right now to sell Alonso to whichever driver out of Gasly and Colapinto I think can score the most points after watching the sprint qualifying. If I make an additional move, hopefully it's just one, because I want to save transfers to have 3 transfers guaranteed in Qatar, just so that I can afford to rewire my team a bit for that massive 3x weekend, because I think that is the main way I have of climbing rank now is the successful 3x, and I need to make sure that that chip goes right. So we'll see what I end up doing, but right now it's Alonso out for Gasly or Colapinto, and then it could be Russell to Leclerc or Piastri, it could be Bortoleto to Behrman, it could be Sainz to Behrman, it could be Mercedes to Red Bull Racing. Max Verstappen is not going anywhere, McLaren Constructor is not going anywhere, and that's going to be my team. If you enjoyed this video and made it all the way through, please don't forget to like the video and please subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for the support throughout the year. Only a couple more to go. Let's try and all get to the rank that we want by the end of the season. I'm praying for 2,999 or below. I'll see you for the watch along on Friday. I'll see you for the deadline stream on Saturday. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.